Greetings, royal family, love and light energies. Give thanks to life, give thanks to the source. Give thanks to just being here once more, Now we're going to hold a nice little vibes today because I'm going to do some reading from the last book of Enki. So I'm going to just kick it off right in a tablet 9 within the book, same way, seeing. So we'll read the synopsis first, then we're going to the details. So synopsis of the 9th tablet of the last book of Enki. Mankind proliferates. Adapa's line serves as royalty. Define Enil, Marduk espouses an earthling female. Celestial disturbances and climate control affect Lamu. The Igigi descend to earth, sees earthling females as wives. The promiscuous Enki begets a human son, Ziresrudra. Drought and pestilence cause sufferings on earth. Enil sees it as fated retribution and wants to return home. Ninma, aged by earth cycles, also want to return home. A mystery emissary warns them not to defy their destiny. Signs increase of a coming calamitous deluge. Most Anunnaki began to depart back to Nibiru. Enil enforces a plan to let mankind perish. Enki and Ninma start to preserve Earth's seeds of life. The remaining Anunnaki prepare for the day of deluge. Nergal, Lord of the lower world, is issue the warning. As we began now, tablet 9. In the days of Lumak, Marduk and the Igigi intermarried with Earthlings. The hardships on earth were increasing in those days. In those days, Lamu was enveloped with dryness and dust. The Anunnaki who decreed the fates, Enil, Enki, and Ninma, consulted with each other. They wondered what was altering the conditions on earth and Lamu. They observed flarings on the sun. There were disruptions in the net forces of earth and Lamu. In the Abzu, the tip facing the White Land, they installed far observing instruments. Enki's son Nergal and his spouse Ereshigal were put in charge of the instruments. Ninurta was assigned to the land beyond the seas to establish a bond, heaven, earth, in the mainland. The Igigi were restless on Lamu. Marduk was given the task of pacifying them. The way station on Lamu must be kept until it is known what is causing the hardships, Marduk said to the leaders. The three who decree fates consulted with each other. They looked at each other. How old the others seemed. Each one thought about the other. Enki, who was grieving the death of Adapa, was the first one to speak. More than 100 shars have passed since my arrival, he said to his brother and sister. I was then a dashing leader. Now I am old, bearded, tired. Enil then spoke. I was an enthusiastic hero, ready for command and adventure. Now I have children who have children, all born on earth. We become old on earth, but those born on earth are older even sooner. Enil rulefully said to his brother and sister. Ninma said wistfully, as for me, they call me an old sheep. Enil said, while the others have been coming and going, taking turns serving on earth, we the leaders have stayed and stayed. Perchance it is time to leave. Enki then said, I wondered about that too, Is it a thing on Nibiru, a thing on earth? Ninma said, perchance it concerns the life cycles. The three leaders decided to watch and see what transpired. At that time, fate, or was it destiny, took matters in its own hands. For it came to pass that soon after Marduk came to his father Enki. He wished to discuss a matter of gravity with his father Enki. Upon the earth, Enel's 3 sons chose spouses. Ninurta espoused a young daughter of Anu named Bawu. Nanar chose Ningal, and Ishkor had taken Shala. Marduk said to his father Enki, "Your son Nergal took Erishigal, a granddaughter of Enil, as spouse. Seeing, by threats to kill her was her consent extracted. Nergal did not await my espousal, being your firstborn. The other 4 are awaiting my espousal in difference. I wish to choose a bride. It is my desire to have a spouse." Enki said to Marduk, "Son, your words make me happy. Your mother shall rejoice too." Then Marduk motioned to his father with a raised hand to hold his words to Ninki. Enki went on to ask, "Is she one of the young ones who give healing and succor?" Then Marduk whispered, "She is a descendant of Adapa. She is of earth, not Nibiru." Enki was speechless, another puzzled look. Then he shouted uncontrolled words, "A prince of Nibiru, a firstborn entitled to succession, will espouse an earthling?" Marduk then said to him, "Not an earthling, but your own offspring. She is a daughter of Enki. He was taken to heaven. Her name is Serpent." Enki summoned his spouse, Nenki. He related what had transpired with Marduk. Marduk repeated his heart's desire to his mother, Ninki, and said, "When Enki journeyed with me, I taught him of heaven and earth. I saw with my own eyes what my father had once said. We have created a primitive being on this planet, step by step, to be one like us. Civilized Earthlings is in our image and in our likeness. Except for the long life, they are us. Enki's daughter caught my fancy, and I wish to espouse her." So Ninki pondered her son's word, and, "Does the maiden appreciate your gaze?" she asked Marduk. "Indeed she does," Marduk said to his mother. Enki then said with a raised voice, "This is not the matter to consider. If our son does this, he would never go back to Nibiru with his spouse. He will forsake his princely rights on Nibiru forever." Marduk responds to his father with bitter laughter. "My rights on Nibiru are non-existent, Dad. My rights as firstborn have been trampled even on earth. This is indeed my decision, from a prince to become a king, the master of this planet." So Ninki and Enki said, "Let it be so." They summoned the bride's brother, Marshal, and they told him of Marduk's wish. Marshal was humbled, but overwhelmed with joy. "Let it be so," he said. When Enil was told of the decision, he was seized with fury. It was one thing for the father to have intercourse with Earthlings. It is another matter for the son to espouse an Earthling, to bestow lordship upon her. When she was told, Ninma was greatly disappointed. Marduk could espouse any maiden of ours. He could even choose from my own daughters by Enki. He could espouse half-sisters, as it is royal custom. Ninma said. With fury, Enil beamed words of the matter to Anu and Nibiru. Enil said to the king Anu, "This behavior has gone too far. It cannot be allowed." Anu summoned the counselors to discuss the matter with urgency. They found no rule of such a matter in the rule books. Anu also summoned the savants to discuss the matter's consequences. They said to Anu, "Adapa, the maiden's progenitor, could not stay on Nibiru. Therefore, Marduk must be forever barred from returning with her to Nibiru. Indeed, having been accustomed to earth cycles even without her, Marduk's return might be impossible." The savant said to Anu with that. The counselors too agree. "Let decisions be beamed to earth," Anu said. "Marduk can marry, but he shall be a prince on Nibiru no more." The decision was accepted by Enki and Marduk. Enil too bowed to the word from Nibiru. Enki said to them, "Let there be a wedding celebration. Let it be in Eridu." Enil the commander announced, "Marduk and his bride cannot stay in Eden. Let us make a wedding gift for Marduk and his bride. A domain of their own in another land away from Eden," Enki said to Enil. Enil thought of Marduk being sent away with the consent. "To a land of what domain are you speaking?" Enil asked his brother Enki. Enki answered, "A domain above the Abzu, in the land that reaches the upper sea, the Mediterranean, one that is separated from Eden by waters that can be reached by ships." Enil said, "Well, let it be so then." Ninki arranged a wedding celebration. In Eridu, Marduk and Sarpanit were getting ready. Her people announced the ceremony by the sound of a copper drum. Her sisters with 7 tambourines presented the bride to her spouse. A great multitude of civilized Earthlings assembled in Eridu. The wedding was like a coronation to them. Young Anunnaki also came. Igigi from Lamu came in great numbers. Lamu is Mars, The Igigi explained the arrival in large numbers by saying, "We came to witness a union of Nibiru and Earth, to celebrate our leader's wedding." Now this is the account of how the Igigi abducted the daughters of the Earthlings, and how affliction followed, and how Zirisuda was oddly born. The Igigi came to Earth from Lahamu, which is Mars, in great numbers. Only a third of them stayed on Lahamu. 200 came to Earth. Their explanation was to attend the wedding celebration with their leader Marduk. Their secret was unknown to Enki and Enil. Their plot was to abduct and have a conjugation unknown to the leaders on Earth. A multitude of the Igigi got together. They said to each other, "We should not be deprived of what is permitted to Marduk." Their slogan was, "Enough suffering with loneliness of not having an offspring." During their comings and goings between Lamu and Earth, the daughters of the Earthlings, the Adapite females as they called them, they saw and lusted after them. The plotters said to each other, "Come, let us choose wives from among the Adapite females and beget children." One among them was Shammaz, and he became their leader. He said to the others, even if none of you agree enough, Master, I shall do the deed alone. If a penalty shall be imposed for this sin, I shall bear it alone for all of you. One by one, others joined in the plot together. Together they swore to do it by an oath. 200 of them descended on the landing place by the time of Marduk's wedding. They came down upon the great platform in the Cedar Mountains. They journeyed from there to Eridu. They passed among the toiling Earthlings. They arrived together with the Earthling throng in Eridu. After the wedding ceremony of Marduk and Sarpanit had taken place, by a prearranged signal, Shamash gave a sign to the others. Each of the Igigi seized an Earthling maiden. They abducted them by force. The Igigi went to the landing place in the Cedar Mountains with the females. They made the place into a stronghold. They issued a challenge to the leaders. Enough of deprivation and not having offspring. We wish to marry the Adapite daughters. You must give us your blessing to this, or else we will destroy all on earth by fire. The leaders were alarmed. They demanded Marduk, the commander of the Igigi, to take charge. If I must seek a solution in the matter, my heart is in agreement with the Igigi, Marduk said to the others. What I have done cannot be deprived to them. Enki and Ninmah shook their heads. They voiced their agreement. Only Enlil was enraged. Without pacification, one evil deed has been followed by another. The Igigi have adopted fornication from Enki and Marduk. Our pride and sacred missions have been abandoned to the winds. This planet shall be overrun with earthling multitudes by our own hands. Let the Gigi and their females depart from earth, Enlil said with much disgust. Marduk said to Enlil and Enki, conditions are becoming unbearable on Lamu, so surviving is not possible. Enlil shouted with anger, they cannot remain in Eden. He left the gathering with much disgust in his heart. Enlil was plotting things against Marduk and his Earthlings. The Igigi and their females were secluded upon the landing platform in the Cedar Valley Mountains. Children were born to them. They were called children of the rocket ships. Marduk and his spouse, Sarpanit, also had children. Their first two sons were called Asar and Satu. This is where we get Asar and Set, Osiris and Set. Marduk invited the Igigi to the domain above the Abzu, which is Egypt, granted to him and Sarapint. Marduk summoned the Igigi to dwell in the two cities that he had built for his sons. Some of the Igigis and their offspring came to the dominion in the dark-hued land. Shamash and the honors and the others remained on the landing platform in the Cedar Mountains. Some of their offsprings went to the far east lands, land of the high mountains. Ninurta carefully observed how Marduk increased his strength with Earthlings. Ninurta said to his father Enlil, what are Enki and Marduk scheming, Daddy? Then Enlil said to his son Ninurta, the earth will be inherited by the Earthlings. Go find the offspring of Cain. Prepare a domain of your own with them. Ninurta went to the other side of the earth. He found the offspring of Cain. He taught them how to make tools and to play music. He showed them how to engage in mining, to smelt and refine. He showed them how to build a raft of baslam trees. He guided them across a great sea. They established a domain in a new land. They built a new city with twin towers. It was a domain beyond the seas. It was not the mountain land of the new bond heaven earth. Lumak was the workmaster in the Eden. His duty was to enforce quotas. His task was to reduce the Earthlings' rations. His spouse was Batanash. She was the daughter of Lamuk's father's brother. She was of beauty, outstanding. Enki was charmed by her beauty. Enki sent word to his son Marduk. Summon Lamuk to your domain. Teach him how to build a city there by Earthlings. And when Lamuk was summoned to the domain of Marduk, he brought his spouse Batanash. To the Ninma household in Sharbuk, the haven city, they settled, to be safe and protected from the angry Earthling masses. Thereafter, Enki was quick to visit his sister Ninma in Sharabak. Batanash was bathing on the roof of a dwelling. Enki took hold of her by her loins. He kissed her. He poured his semen into her womb. Batanash was with child. Her belly was truly swelling, Words were sent to Lumak from Shurbak. Return to Eden. You have a son. Lumak returned to the Eden. Batanash showed him the son. His skin was white as the snow. His hair was the color of wool. His eyes were like the skies. His eyes were shining in brilliance. Lumak was amazed and frightened. He hurried to his father, Matshua, and said, a son, unlike an earthling, was born to Batanash. I am greatly puzzled by this birth. Matushal came to Batanash. He saw the newborn boy. He was amazed by his likeness. Matushal demanded the truth from Batanash. Is the boy's father of the Igigi? Batanash answered him, none of the Igigi is the boy's father. I swear this upon my life. Matushal then turned to his son Lumak. He put a calming arm on his shoulder. Why, this is a mystery. But an omen is revealed to you in this oddness. He is unique. He was chosen by destiny for a unique task. I know not what that task is. In appropriate time it shall become known. So Matsual said to his son Lamuk. He was alluding to what was transpiring on earth. The sufferings on earth were increasing in those days. The days grew colder. The skies were holding back their rains. Fields diminished their crops. In the sheepfolds, ewe lambs were few. Let the son be born to you, unusual as he is. It is an omen that respite something is coming. Matsual said to Lamuk. Let respite be his name. Batanash did not reveal his son's secret to Matsual and Lumak, but she called him Zuril Sudra. He is of long bright life days. He was raised in Shurabak. Ninma bestowed her protection and affection upon the child. He was endowed with much understanding. He was provided by her with knowledge. Enki greatly adored the child. He taught him to read the writings of Adapa. The boy learned as a young man how to observe and perform priestly rites. Zurishudha was born in 110th Shar. He grew up in Shurabuk and espoused Emzara. She bore him 3 sons. The sufferings on earth intensified in his days. Plagues and starvations afflicted the earth. Now this is the account of earth's tribulation before the deluge, and how the mysterious Galzu guided decisions of life and death in secret. Enlil was greatly disturbed by the conjugations of Igigi and Earthlings' daughters. By Marduk's espousal of an earthly female, Enlil was much distraught. In his eyes, Anunnaki mission to earth had become perverted. The howling, shouting earthling masses become an anathema to him. Enlil said to the other leaders, the pronouncements of the earthlings have become oppressive. The conjugations deprive me of sleep. Plagues and pestilence afflicted the earth in the days of Zirisruja. Achenes, dizziness, chills, and fever overwhelmed the earthlings. Ninmah said, let us teach the earthlings curing. They must learn how to remedy themselves. Ninmah, which is the same Ninurshag, Enlil retorted to her pleas, this I forbid by decree. Let the earthlings perish by hunger and pestilence. Enlil said, in anger, the earthlings ate the grasses of the field for 1 shar. For the 2nd and the 3rd shar, they suffered the vengeance of Enlil. The suffering was becoming unbearable in Sharburak, in Shorobak, Zirisruja city. As a spokesman of the Earthlings, Zirisruja journeyed to Eridu. He made his way to the house of the Lord Enki. He called the name of the Lord. He pleaded to him for help and salvation. Enki was bound by Enlil's decree. In those days, the Anunnaki were concerned for their own survival. Their own rations were diminished. They become afflicted themselves by the earth changes. On earth as on Lamu, the seasons lost their regularity. For 1 shar, for 2 shars. 1 shar is 3,600 earth years. 1 shar for Nibiru. The heavenly circuits were studied from Nibiru. Oddities were observed in the planetary destinies from Nibiru. Black spots were appearing on the sun's face. Flames shot from its face. Kishar was also misbehaving. His host lost its footings. Their circuits were dizzying. The armored bracelet was pushed and pulled by unseen net forces. For reasons unfathomed, the sun was upsetting its family members. The destinies of the Celestials were overtaken by savory fates. On Nibiru, savants raised the alarm. The people gathered in the public squares. Voices from amongst the people shouted, the Creator of all is returning. The heavens to primordial days. Angry is the Creator of all. The tribulations were increasing on earth. Fear and famine reared their heads. For 3 shars, 4 shars, the instruments facing the White Lands were observed. Odd rumblings in the White Lands. Snows were recorded by Nergal and Reshigal. They reported from the tip of the Abzu, the snow ice that covers the White Land has taken to sliding. The North established foretelling instruments in the haven in the land beyond the seas. He noticed quakes and jitters at the earth's bottom with the instruments. Enlil sensed words of alarm to Anu and Nibiru. And odd matters afoot. For the 5th shar, the 6th shar, the phenomena gained strength. The savants raised an alarm on Nibiru. They gave forewarnings of calamities to the king. The next time Nibiru nears the sun, Earth shall be exposed to Nibiru's net force. Lahamu shall take a station in its circuits on the sun's other side. Earth shall not have protection in the heavens from Nibiru's net force. Kishar and its host shall be agitated. Lamu shall also shake and wobble. In earth great below, the snow ice of the white land is losing its footing. Ice shall melt. The next time Nibiru approaches closest to earth, the snow ice shall come sliding off the surface of the white lands. It shall cause a watery calamity. The earth will be overwhelmed by a huge wave, a deluge. The vibes on Nibiru was great. Nibiru's own fate was uncertain. King, savants, and counselors also worried greatly about Earth and Lamu. The king and the council made a decision to prepare for evacuation of Earth and Lamu. Gold mines were shut down in the Abzu. All the Anunnaki therefrom came to the Eden. Smelting and refining ceased in Bad Tibira. Also gold was allotted to Nibiru. A fleet of fast celestial chariots returned to Earth, empty, ready for evacuation. Heavenly signs were watched on Nibiru. Tremors on Earth were recorded. It was at that time that a white-haired Anunnaki stepped from one of the celestial chariots. His name was Galzu, meaning the Great Knower. He made his way with majestic steps to Enil. He presented a sealed message to him. He said to Enil, I am Galzu, emissary, plenipotentiary of king and council. Enil was surprised by his coming. No word of it did forecome by Anu. The tablet was reading Nibiru key. Its encoding was trustworthy. Its encoding was trustworthy. The message from Anu stated, Galzu speaks for king and council. His words are my command. Galzu requested that Enki and Ninma also be summoned. When they came, Galzu smiled pleasantly to Ninma and said, we are of the same school and age. Ninma could not recall this. The emissary was as young as a son. She was his olden mother. Galzu said to her, the explanation is simple. It is caused by our winter slumber life cycles. Ever since Dumuzi had stayed on Nibiru, returning Anunnaki were examined on Nibiru. Those who stayed longest on Earth were harshly afflicted by the returning. Their sleeps were disturbed. Their eyesight was failing. The net force of Nibiru weighed their walk. Their minds was also affected, as sons were older than the parents they had left. Death, my comrades, came quickly to the returnees. Of that I am here to give you warning. The three leaders on earth, the longest, became silent by the words. Nina was the first to speak. That was much to be expected. Enki, the wise ones, consent to her words and said, that much was clear. Enil was seized with anger. Before the Earthlings were becoming like us, now we have becoming imprisoned on this planet of Earthling. This whole mission turned to a nightmare. By Enki and his Earthlings, from masters, we were made slaves. Enil said. Galso listened to the outburst with compassion and said, indeed, there is much to ponder. There was much thinking and soul searching on Nibiru, raising deep questions. Should Nibiru have been left to its fate? Let happen whatever the Creator of all intended? Or was coming to earth conceived by the Creator of all? and we only unwitting emissaries. Galsu said to them, of that, my comrades, this debate will continue. Now, this is the secret command from Nibiru. Listen me now. You shall outweigh the calamity encircling the earth in celestial chariots. A choice must be given to each of the other Anunnaki to leave or outweigh the calamity. The Igigi who espouse Earthlings must choose between departure and spouses. No Earthling is allowed to journey to Nibiru, including Marduk's Sarpanit. For all those who stay to see what happens, they must seek safety in celestial chariots. And for others, they must be ready to depart for Nibiru. So did Galzu receive the commands to the leaders in secret. Now this is the account of how the Anunnaki decided to abandon the earth and how they took an oath to let mankind perish in the deluge. So Enlil summoned a council of Anunnaki and Igigi, commanders in Nibruki. Their leaders and their children were also present. Enlil revealed to them the words of the impending calamity as a secret. The earth mission has come to a bitter end in Aberdeen. All those who wish to leave will be evacuated to Nibiru in celestial boats that are ready. But if they have earthling spouses, they must leave without the spouses. Let the Igigi who are attached to their spouses and offspring escape to the highest peaks on earth. As for a few of us Anunnaki who will choose to stay, we will remain in earth's skies in boats of heaven. Sound like Elon Musk. We will outweigh the calamity to witness the fate of earth, Enlil said as the commander. I shall be the first one to stay. The others will be on their own choice. Ninurta shouted, I choose to stay with my father to face the calamity. I will return to the lands beyond the oceans after the deluge. Nanar, Enlil's firstborn on earth, announced an odd wish. His wish was to outweigh the deluge on the moon, not in the skies of earth. Enki raised an eyebrow. Enlil, though puzzled, approved. Ishkur, Enlil's youngest, made his decision to remain on earth with his father. Utu and Ainana, Nanar's children, who were born on earth, declared to stay. Enki and Ninki chose not to abandon earth, so they proudly announced, we will stay. Marduk stated with anger, I shall not desert the Igigi and Sarpanit. One by one, Enki's other son announced their choice to stay. Nergal, Gibil, Ninagal, Ningizida, and Dumunzi, too. All eyes then turned to Ninma. She declared her choice to stay with pride. My life work is here. I shall not abandon my creation, the Earthlings. Anunnaki and Igigi were stirred to a clamor by her words. They inquired about the Earthlings' fate. Enlil proclaimed, let the Earthlings perish for the abominations. Enki shouted to Enlil, you crazy or what? A wondrous being was created by us. It must be saved by us. Enlil retorted to this with his own shouted words. You see you, from the beginning at every turn the decisions were modified by you. You gave procreating to the primitive workers. You endowed them with knowing. You have taken the powers of the Creator of all into your hands. Thereafter you fouled even that by abominations. You conceived Adapa with fornication. You gave understanding to his line. You have taken his offspring to heaven. You shared our wisdom with them. You have broken every rule. You have ignored decisions and command. A sibling earthling murdered his brother because of you. Because the Igigi intermarried with earthlings like your son Marduk, who is lordly from Nibiru, it is no longer known to whom the earth belongs. Enough, enough. I say to all that the abominations cannot continue. Now that a calamity has been ordained by a destiny unknown, let what must happen, happen. Enil proclaimed this angrily, then demanded all leaders to swear and to let events occur unhindered. Ninurta was the first to take the oath of silence. Others of Enil's side followed. Of Enki's son, Nergal was the first to take the oath. Enki's other son followed. I bow to your command. Marduk sent to Enil. But what worth is the swearing if Igi abandoned their spouses? Wouldn't the fear spread among the earthlings? Ninma was in tears. She whispered the words of oath faintly. Enil gazed at his brother Enki and said, It is the wish of king and council. Enki asked his brother Enil, Why will you bind me with an oath? This decision was made by you. It is a commandment on the earth. I cannot arrest the floodwaters. I cannot save the earthling multitudes. To what oath, therefore, do you desire to bind me? Let it be known as Enil's decision. Let the responsibility forever rest on Enil alone. Enil said to all. Then Enki departed from the assembly. Marduk also left with him. Enil brought the assembly to order with quick words. With firm decisions, he assigned tasks for what has to be done. Arrange a grouping between those who will depart and those who wish to stay. Designated places for the assembly to assign chariots to collect the equipments. Those who were returning to Nibiru were the first to depart. They boarded the celestial boats. Much embracing, locking of arms, joys mixed with sorrow. The vehicles from Sipar roared aloft, one after the other. At first, those left behind shouted, Safe journey! Then the cries muted. After the launches toward Nibiru were completed, then came the turn of Marduk and Gigi, and the Igigi with spouses. Marduk assembled them all on the landing place. He gave them a choice, to go with him, Sarpanit, and 2 sons and daughters to outwit the calamity on Lamu, which is Mars, or to disperse to distant mountain lands on earth, to find a haven from the deluge. Enil then took account of those who remained. He assigned them to chariots by groupings. Enil directed Ninurta to the mountain lands beyond the ocean to report of the earth grumblings. Enil assigned Nergal and Ereshkigal the task of watching the white land. To guard against an onrush of earthlings, Enil gave the task to Ishkar. To bar access to erect a baluster barrier and bolt, Sipar, the place of celestial chariots, was the center of all preparations. Enil moved the tablets of destinies from Nibruki to Sipar. A temporary bond heaven-earth was established there. Enil then addressed his brother Enki. If ever the calamity might be survived, Let all that has happened on earth be remembered. Let us safely bury records in Sipar, in the depths of the earth. Let what was done on one planet from another be uncovered in days to come. Enki accepted his brother's word with approval. They stored MEs and other tablets in golden chests. They buried them in Sipar for posterity in the depths of the earth. Thus ready the leaders awaited the signal to depart. They watched the approach of Nibiru in its great circuit with apprehension. It was at that time of anxious waiting that Enki addressed his sister Ninma. With the Earthlings, Enki lost attention to all other living creatures. When the avalanche of water sweep over the lands, other living creatures, some originated by us from Nibiru, most evolved from the earth itself, shall be doomed to extinction in one sudden swoop. So let us, you and me, preserve their seed of life, extract their life essence for safekeeping. Ninma, she who gave life, gave favor to Enki's word. She said to Enki, I shall do it in Sherburak, in Sherbubak, in Sherubak. You do so with the Abzu's living creatures. While the others sat waiting idly, Enki and Ninma undertook a challenging task. Ninma was helped by some of her female assistants in Sherubak. Enki was assisted by Ningizida in the Abzu at the olden house of life. They collected male and female essence and life eggs, one each kind, 2 by 2, 2 by 2. They preserved in Shurubak and the Abzu for safekeeping, while earth to be taken in circuit, therefore to recombine the living kinds. At that time, words came from Ninurta. Earth's rumbling was ominous. At that time, words came from Nergal and Ershigal. The white land is shaking. All the Anunnaki gathered in Cypher, in Sipar. They awaited the day of the deluge, or the deluge, or deluge. Yes, family, that's the end of the 9th tablet. Love and light. Give thanks.